everybody, the red subscribe down below. Go ahead and click it. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shannon Confidential. I'm Shannon, your host. And Shannon Confidential is a podcast or a conversation about life, love, and everything in between. And today's special guest, Marjorie Phoenix, had a lot of in between going on. And it's a very private story. And she did go through some very, very challenging times. And I'll let her go through that. But she did write a book about it. And that book is called Who the Hell Do You Think You Are? And with a title like that, you can just imagine what's on the inside. She's got one hell of a story. Now I'll let her go into it, but it is quite incredible how she took very personal struggles and paid it forward and used the arts and showing your emotion artistically to talk about your struggles in life and how to help other people who are also going through abuse and violence and to get through the healing process of the struggles in their lives. So I'm really excited to bring her story to you and let her tell it. And she's an incredible woman. She does so much more than just write. She's, involved in so much, but she just has a great story. And I want you to hear it straight from her. So I'm very excited to introduce to you Marjorie Phoenix. All right, everybody, here she is, Marjorie Phoenix, the author of Who the Hell Do You Think You Are? I can't wait for you to hear everything about what went into this book, what she does beyond this book. This woman is incredible what she does to pay such traumatic things in her life forward to help heal herself and others. It's pretty spectacular, but I don't want to take too much time away. So Marjorie, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction, Shannon. It's a pleasure to be here and share my story. I really appreciate this. Listen, it's always about the title of that book, right? Everybody's like, who the hell does she think do you think you are?
I love it.
And I'm like, well, let me tell you, I answered that question in my book. But I will tell you that it started about 10 years ago, right? I can't believe it's been about 10 years, but
wow.
Everything is still very fresh in my mind. And I had been married for about 7.5 years. And one morning, and this is where the book starts off, one morning, we got into an altercation, and really there was more of verbal abuse, and it set me off. I had reached my tipping point right then, and not realizing that it was really to trigger me to do that. But I threw a wedding album at my then husband, and he ducked, it hit the wall, and pictures went flying everywhere. And he went running into the restaurant. And while he was in there, I was like tearing up all the wedding pictures and throwing them in the garbage. And
we've all been
my
there.
two girls were in the other room. Yeah, it was just really, I was
Chills.
just done with it. And yeah, and my two girls were out on the other side of the house. But it was that morning I was going to be taking them to school. But by the time I had gotten all of that cleaned up and went to the front, he had called the police. And
Wow.
so the police came, took him outside, took his side of the story, talked to me, and basically told me, listen, we'll write this up, send this to the DA's office, and they'll figure out what to do next. As I was getting into the car to take the girls to school, my youngest was 6 at the time. I was putting her in a car seat, and my oldest was 18, a senior in high school.
Okay.
The police officer stopped me and told me, ma'am, I'm sorry, but my hands are tied. I'm going to have to take you in. Your husband is adamant about having you removed from the home. So, my eldest daughter was freaking out at that time, asking him, why is he doing this? I just told him, just calm down. I said, I'll be out soon. I'll be home soon. And, they took me into the police car. I'd never been in the back of a police car before. And they took me in, and the police officer told me, he said, by the time as you get there, it'll be time for, first call. You'll probably be out in a couple of hours. So we did that. They took me in, got me, booked, and then found out that I missed first call and I had to be there for 24 hours. And that is just when I just lost it. Yeah.
I
So
just, first of all, did your children see you being put into the police car?
I will never forget the look on my 6-year-old daughter's face, strapped in the car seat, looking out the window as I was being taken away.
She
Even
wasn't even
now,
shielded
seeing
from
that,
it.
Shannon, it tears me up. Um,
As a
like
mom,
how, yeah, yeah. How could you do this, to your child? But anyway, by the time, and listen, the whole overnight 24 hours in jail is a whole nother story that's in the book, just about knowing at that point, like laying on the floor on a cot in the women's wing of the jail, and feeling something in my spirit that God was going to do something, but having no idea what it was going to be. All I could think about is, I just want to get home.
you wanted
Getting
to
up
get
that
back to your
next
babies.
morning, want to get back to my children, and then I find out I can't go back. The judges tell me I cannot go back to this house. I have no family, in this city. I'm a stay-at-home mom, right? Where am I going? And then the next thing was the bank accounts were closed. I mean, not closed, but he basically emptied them. So the bank accounts were emptied.
You were just
And then
left.
just put out like garbage. Um, and
Wow.
then I find out I want to see my child, right? So I go to the school to see if I can, see my child. And the police were called because he had a restraining order on me to keep me away from my child. So it just kept coming
Wow.
and coming and coming. And so, anyway, so that was the beginning of a very long journey of basically being stripped of all of my resources, my home, my family, right? But getting to the title of the book, um, there was a conversation he and I had maybe a month or two prior to that. I was sitting across from him from the dining room table, and I was telling him that I knew that I wanted to do some work with women. I knew I wanted to work with women in some way. I was thinking it was going to be single moms because I was a single mother when we got married. And I said, I think I want to do something with them. And he looked at me and he asked me, who the hell do you think you are? What makes you think that these
What?
women will listen to you? You have no college education, you have no formal training. And at that point, Shannon, I have to say,
Wow.
it wasn't even so much that he asked me, like, who do I think I am that I could do that? But at that point, I really didn't even know who I was. I did not know who the hell I was because I was holding on to this identity as his wife and as a mother, and this, this role model in the community at church and all of these different things. I didn't know who I was.
You lose your identity.
You lose your identity. And for years, it had always been this belittling of the fact that I didn't go to college. He went to college. He knew it all. He was the breadwinner. He was this, he was that. So it was all about him. And I brought no value to the marriage. But deep down inside, I knew better than that. And the more I tried to show my value, the more he pushed back
Oh,
and
he
wanted to
was
keep
trying to
me
hold
in
you
my
down.
place.
He was manipulating you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And
So the
and and
escalate,
and I have and when you were saying it was more, verbal abuse, there's times where I think verbal abuse, first of all, it takes over a long period of time. They break you down. And I think it's far more severe and more difficult to come back. And this is going to come out wrong, but it's just longer and consistent, and it just continues and continues. And it's such a mental breakdown where you do, like you said, you lose your identity. You want to do something good, and he's basically convinced you you're not good enough to do something good. And verbal abuse is truly abuse. And some people don't catch that. It's absolutely, verbal abuse is mental abuse, and that's horrible.
Yes, that lasts, just like you said, that lasts a whole lot longer than the bruises do.
Yes.
And so that just took on a life of its own. But I could see there was an escalation, because one of the things I try to tell people who are in abusive marriages is that you will see an escalation happen as soon as you decide that you are
Mhm.
no longer going to put up with this, that you are going to leave. And this is why statistics show that when a woman leaves, she's at a higher risk of being hurt or killed. So people always ask, why don't you leave? Why don't you
100%.
leave? This is why. This is exactly why. So what was happening was he knew I had decided that I was going to leave, and I was making the preparations for there to be some sort of a reasonable separation between us. But there was this, it was his ego that was at risk, his image. And he was just, he didn't want to lose control. He didn't want to lose his home. He didn't want to lose his daughter. He didn't want to, all of these different things that I really wasn't trying to take from him. And so
All
when
up
I
here again.
decided that, the cork just popped on that situation.
And that's why so many women, and I say women, there could be men in this situation.
Of course,
I'm
of
just
course.
saying what I've
Yes.
experienced. So many women, because of the things that you said, you weren't working, you were a stay-at-home mom, you did not have a college education or even work experience to say, maybe you worked in an office or, just something that you could do, accounting,
Mhm.
secretary, answer the phones, what have you. And then the financial end of it, there's so many women who want so badly to get out, but they feel like the wall in front of them to scale is so huge because where am I going to work? Where am I going to go? I can't afford anything. I have no bank account. Then they're going to take the bank account, and they stay 100% out of fear. And that's
Yep.
you just feel for anybody living through that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really tough situation to be in. You can't tell someone what to do. What you can do is support them
Yes.
through whatever it is that they decide. And that's the biggest thing, that family members and friends of someone who is living in a situation like this, you have to be able to understand the psychological ramifications of all of this as well. And if there are children involved also. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it's just not this easy thing. But what I say too is it's also scary because, quite honestly, we do not have a system set up to truly support victims to leave situations like this. I mean, it is just the criminal justice system. We have the shelters and all of that, but there needs to be more resource given to help those victims rebuild their life. And that was the thing. It was like I tell people it's like I went from one side of the railroad tracks to the other, right? It was, and I was, so I'm living in this home, I'm upper middle class, and I have a car, my bills are paid, I have clothes, to virtually nothing, not even a pair of panties, like nothing. So everything is a fight. Everything to get everything back, my belongings, my child, all of that, to get that back is a fight. And that's what I ended up on. And so imagine that you just came out of this biggest fight of your life. Now you've got this other external fight of a divorce from someone who has all the control, all of the resources. I mean, it can really feel defeating.
I just, and the one thing you mentioned was you were in a shelter, and how there are services out there for women. And I know when I was looking into all of this and researching it, on top of that fear that the spouse does, because they know like everything in your life was on them, and they have this
Yeah.
power to make your life miserable and scary if you leave. Um, they also, especially for kids, and if there's a pet in the family, they
Mm,
sometimes can get abusive to the pet or threaten the pet. And then you have these shelters where these moms take, because the pet is the only thing the child has, and then they go to a
yes,
shelter and the shelters aren't pet friendly. So when you said the
that's right.
system is not set up for the
Yeah,
victim, it goes so deep because the people doing this, they know how to play it. They know how to play. They
yeah.
know how to make it difficult. They know how to make
Oh,
it scary. They know how to use
yes.
your kids against you. It's just, wow.
They know how to use the system against you. So he knew this law that was intended to protect victims of abuse, he flipped it because he had already gone to an attorney and just tried to figure out what can he do. And this was the best way, the quickest way to get me out of the home. But I want to tell you, I was not able to go into a shelter, Shannon, and I'll tell you why. Because I
Really?
was not a victim of physical abuse. I was a victim of verbal, mental,
That makes
financial,
me
and
so angry.
yes, yes, yes. That was it
Verbal
right there.
abuse scars. It's debilitating. It's mental. How could that not?
There was no threat to my life. That's what they said. There was no, he didn't threaten my life. It was none of that. It didn't matter. Everything that he said, the bullying, the work, none of that mattered. None of that mattered that I had no place to go. And because I was the one that spent the night in jail for what they called battery for throwing a wedding album, right? I was not seen as the victim. So this made the situation even worse for me. So I had to end up staying with a friend, and I stayed with her for about 30 days until she and her husband were like, and that was me and my daughter, they were like, they couldn't take us anymore. It was too much of an expense on them to have us there. And um, yeah, it was a lot. So
Wow.
yeah.
So, yeah. That's all I can say is yeah. Um, and so many people could have just spiraled down at that very moment. And basically, the life that your children have, the life that you have now, what they saw their mom do, that strength that you have just risen up. You could have, and I don't think anybody blamed you, if you spiraled and went further down and maybe didn't come back or didn't come back right away, but you didn't. And as awful as the beginning part of your journey is, what you did after that, it was like, I'll tell you who the hell I am.
That, you know what? That is so true. We have a choice. We really don't feel like we have a choice in those situations, but we do. There were times that I would lock myself in the closet at my friend's house, and I would be talking to myself. I would be talking to God. I would talk myself out of literally losing my mind because I felt like I was losing my mind. That's what it felt like. Um,
Nowhere to
and
turn, no help, nothing.
no, no. And I had family in different places, right? And people would send some money here and there. And but the thing, and they were like, why don't you just come and I can't leave. My child is here. If I left here right now, I am forfeiting. And he would go to court and he would just take my child from me. And that's what kept me, Shannon, was that I was not going to leave my child. And I think he knew that if he pushed enough, that I would give up and I would, get on a plane and I would go to the other state where my family was. And I was determined if I had to sleep, from couch to couch. And I was calling friends asking them, can I come and stay on your couch for, a week or two? And it was just so interesting because as much as people say they want to support you, I would hear these little excuses, gentle excuses about why I couldn't come and sleep on their couch. And so, at that moment, it was just, God, what do I do? And let me tell you something, Shannon. When I started asking what to do, and I started just really, listen, you don't have to be religious, but you want to look to a higher power when you're in a situation like that. Universe, God, whatever it is, what to do. what to do showed up, and then I had a miracle. And you guys can read about that in the book, what happens next. But yeah, I had a miracle. And along the way, I had all of these little instances of miracles, even when I felt like things were just not going to go the way I want them
I'm telling you, he sends signs.
to.
I believe that. I
All the
100% believe that.
time.
Whatever it is that it is you believe, I believe
Yes.
there's signs and ways, and just you got to pay attention.
Yes. Oh, most definitely. The signs were there. The signs were there. It was just, it's amazing.
I'm so proud of you. I no more proud than I'm sure you are of yourself. Your kids are proud of you. Like, so just to make you even more remarkable, start to say, okay, so the book came, and then like you have a laundry list of accomplishments and fabulousness.
You know what? Thank you so much, Shannon. Yeah, one of the things that happened was when I really let myself feel the pain, right? When I really allowed myself to be vulnerable, allowed myself to cry, just allowed to feel in and open myself up to what God had next. I always tell people it was like my life was a blank canvas, and God would send me, a paintbrush and different colors and a nail and a hammer. And it was like all these different things to say, you can create the life you want, right? And when I started doing that, I started journaling and doing some little different artistic practices to sort of help me center and be present, because a lot of things were just triggering me. I still had to be in communication with him. We were still going back and forth to court. I was trying to survive, going to church pantries for food and constantly looking for assistance to pay my light bill and this and that and the next thing. And so I started journaling, and then I just got this feeling in my gut that said it was time to write a book. And I didn't want to do it, right? Because I felt a lot of shame around what had happened to me.
Yeah.
There was embarrassment. There was just, and then I didn't want to relive it. But I remember feeling in my spirit, hearing in my spirit that this book, it was not about me. It was about the women that were going to go through or have gone through the same experience, that God wanted them to know that the way he was there for me, he will be there for them.
Ah, that's beautiful.
So it was like this mandate of share your experience and your story so that others that come behind you or going through it can see there is hope, there's light, you can do it. And that's how the book came about.
Yeah, and most people think even in the best of situations, they want to write a book. And that just seems so monumental in and of itself. I always thought I would write
Yes.
a crime scene novel, right? I haven't even put a pen to paper. I've got a million of them in my head, but it just seems so massive
Yes.
an accomplishment. And here
Yes.
you are, I'm gonna write a book, like not even
Yeah.
considering how big it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Or maybe
didn't, and
that's
it was
why
a good
you
thing.
did it, because it was big.
Well, I think it's one of the reasons why it was a little bit easier for me is because I did have my journal. So I had been journaling this entire time. And so I could go back through my journal and I start to relive those moments again, right? And that's why when you read my book, you can really feel into my experience, right? I take you there with me. And so I was able to put that in the book. And then I had someone that worked with me, like an editor, that helped me just shape the stories and condense them, because I didn't want to make it a long, drawn out thing. It was really about taking you from A to B, and that was it. But it's so funny because it only came after the divorce, right? It came after, because I had to take people from beginning, which was the morning that I was arrested, to the end, which was the day that I walked out of court and
Yeah.
got, shared custody of my child and, everything else that the judge gave me. So it was during that time, though, between that I was going through my own healing journey as well. I was doing the work. I needed to do the work because at some point there was going to be a what's next. I had, and the biggest thing for me, Shannon, was that I had my girls watching me. My girls were watching me to see, what I was going to do in a situation like this. This was going to be modeled for them. How do they handle a
Oh,
life's
yeah.
crisis? You know? So
Oh, yeah.
I had to think about all of that. But even in all of that, right, even while the book was still sort of marinating, the nonprofit organization was being, fertilized as well, and that was being sprouted out of some of the journaling and the mindful practices and the creative stuff that I was doing, thinking that, okay, I'm just doing this to help myself sort of heal, when it was starting to open the door for other women as
And that's
well.
the Giving Voices Project, right?
Right, right. It started off as the Forgotten Women Project because I really was focused on the women like myself who'd gone through verbal, mental, financial abuse, who the court systems really don't realize if you're not physically abused. And, so that group of women who basically they were on their own, were trying to heal and get justice in their life.
So you're writing a book. How do you stumble upon building this amazing nonprofit? How did you even get that started?
Yeah. So it started when I started doing some of these practices and I was going to different little support groups. There were other women that I noticed they were struggling in their healing process. And so I started introducing them to some of the things that I was doing. I started bringing them together. Hey, let's go, because I lived like 2 blocks from the beach. Let's meet at the beach. Let's do this. Let's gather at my house. Let's, mandala coloring books and different things. And then I was actually cleaning, right? So I was doing maid service. I was cleaning these beautiful condos in different places like that. And I said, I really wanted to do a retreat to really see how effective this work can be.
Right.
And the lady that I was cleaning for, she owned a beautiful condo, and I told her what I was doing, and she offered her condo overlooking the ocean to me and a group of women for free twice.
Wow.
Where I could host these retreats for us to come together, write poetry, tell our stories, paint, dance, all of these different things. And as I saw the effects that this was having, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna start an organization
I'm
and
on to
we're
something
going
here.
to, yeah, we're gonna help women tell their stories. And now it's just lately we changed the name to Giving Voices Project, and now it's the stories of all survivors, men, women, children, LGBTQ, and all kinds of violence, not just abuse,
Everybody
but
has pain, everybody suffers.
everybody has it. That's right. All kinds of trauma. Those stories can be told, and that's where we're at now.
That's incredible. And I want everybody to know that's watching all of the things that Marjorie is talking about, the Giving Voices Project, the book, and anything she's going to go into. I'll make sure in the post with this podcast will be links so you can find it, read about it, learn about it, become part of it, support it.
Yes,
I'll
definitely.
definitely make sure that you're not left alone out there, that you can be part of it or
Yes,
contribute in some way.
definitely. That's great. Thank you, Shannon. Thank
And
you.
I saw that so you have this organization, which you do a podcast. Are you part
I
of the podcast?
I started a podcast network. See, so much has happened in my, my life since then.
You just
A
got
lot
bigger.
can
You
happen in
get
10
bigger.
years. A lot can happen in 10 years. This is why I always tell women, listen, this is now. But let's think about where you want to go. And if you can't even think that far, let's think about next year. You know what I'm saying? Let's start to dream together, because you cannot imagine what can come out of one thing. The book was one thing, the nonprofit was another thing. Then started, I did some coaching and consulting. Then now I've got the podcast network. And so, all of these for me, Shannon, are different vehicles for stories to be told. We're using audio and video right now to tell stories. That's what we're doing. And I really want to get into that space where stories, important stories, impactful stories can be told.
What I was on this is just incredible because being able to tell it maybe in an artistic way or through a story, or I was on the website and it looked like maybe it was done on a stage, like theater type.
Yes.
There's all different arts. There's many
Yes.
different versions of arts that people can communicate through. And sometimes by being able to do that, I'm going to say a word that's going to come out wrong, and I don't know any other word to do it. Easier, because
Right.
there is, like you said, there's embarrassment, shame. You feel, you're still traumatized. You still have PTSD of someone telling you how awful you are.
Yes.
So then you're
Yes.
trying to tell a story and you hesitate because you don't want people to think you're bad. Like there's a whole psychological thing going on up there, but being able to speak through some form of art maybe just gives you a little bit of a veil where you don't feel so exposed, and it just helps you. And by being able to talk about it, you can slowly lift that veil and realize, hey, so do you find that people might be able to speak easier because they're doing it through some form of art rather than just talking?
Definitely. Not everyone wants to write a book. Okay. Not everyone wants to tell their story in that way. Some of us will tell our story through a poem. And that is the thing about the women that have contributed their work to our productions, like Languages of Abuse, which is the theatrical production. Those women are sharing a piece of their life, right? Of experience, exactly. And so, but they're telling it in a way that is comfortable for them. So we've got music, we've got short stories, we've got monologue, we've even have interpretive dance. And this is what I love about creative expression so much, because it's whatever is comfortable for that person. And that's what we want to help them do. And they don't even have to tell the story. What we do is we even make it a little bit more comfortable and say, okay, how would you feel about having someone tell your story in the way that you wrote it?
Okay.
And be that vehicle for your story. And some of them are more comfortable with that, because not everyone wants to get up in front of a crowd. But just opening that door for them to do that, and then taking the story and now then doing the wearable art show that we did. So now you can see your story expressed through clothing, right? And working with that designer to put that together. That's a lot of fun. And then definitely, the film aspect of it, being able to just, share and open up and being transparent on camera.
So if anybody, for those watching who would, really feel that they would be a good fit, this could be a really big stepping stone to healing. Who is it that who's going to see their art? Who's going to see their monologue or all the different variations of art to express their story? Who actually sees it? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So, it's all been local so far. So I'm in the Orlando, Florida area. So it's all been local to the Central Florida area. We just finished up a mini documentary that's now going to be national. So a lot of people are going to see that. But
please make sure I have the link or dates or information or titles so I can put it in the post, please.
Sure,
Okay.
definitely. So it really depends, but we have a way for you to reach out if you do have a piece that you have written, a song or something that tells your story that you want to be able to share. You can reach out to us on our website, and there is a link under Languages of Abuse where you can go in and just put in all of your information, and we'll call and talk to them about it and just let them understand, because every project that we do is shown to different types of audience. It's shown in different areas. So we always get permission. Do you mind if we use your piece for this or for that? So we don't just take the piece and run with it. It's between us and the contributor.
I just think it's spectacular. It's an awful thing that people need a place like this to go. But the fact that there is a place like this to go that realizes the pain that they're in, that realizes the healing that's necessary, and to see people that went through it just like you did, and they get it. There's a mutual understanding. I think is absolutely phenomenal and so needed in more than just the Orlando area. I'm sure we both agree on that.
Definitely. We would love to expand out because, with nonprofits, it's always about funding for these types of projects. So for us right now, what we're focusing on for the remainder of the year is really about direct services and putting together a program for women that would like to take their story and do something with it. We want to workshop it with them. So maybe it's poetry, maybe it's music. So we work with them from the inception, right? And then we'll also help them develop ways that they can tell their story. So I'm all about seeing the value in your story and using it to create change. That change could start just with you, your own personal healing. That can be within your community, maybe in your church, small support groups, mentorships, that sort of thing. Or it could be on a wider scale where you want to start speaking and you do want to have a book and you want to, maybe put it towards activism work. That will come about once you go through that process. And we
Yeah.
want to help them do that.
Yeah, you mentioned speaking, so I know people can contact you. You can go to speak. What types of places, events, speaking engagements do you do?
Yeah, mostly women's events. So I've done a lot of small women's groups. I've gone for brunches, lunch and learns, and things like that. I'm actually doing a panel discussion in September on mental wellness. I'm going to be interviewing 3 other women that have gone through abuse as well, and we're really going to be talking about your mental health while after experiencing abuse and some of the things that you can do. I've been facilitating a lot of those types of discussions and talks, to really help people, get information that they need to help them through, through a tough time like that. So, any sort of workshop where it's directed towards, mental wellness, self-love, using your story, the power of the story, uh, is where I like to speak.
You're just, I'm sure you hear this a million times and you'll hear it a million times more. But as much as you had angels guiding you, showing you, I even think the woman whose home you were taking care of that you ended up using as a retreat, I believe she was put into your life for a reason. You are like a little angel for so many women. I hope you realize that. You have affected endless lives, not just the women who have worked directly with you, but they have family, they have daughters, sons, mothers, and you indirectly affect all of them by helping this person. So the snowball effect of the goodness that you do is you can't measure it.
I'm so glad you said that, Shannon, because I've never really thought of it that way. And I truly appreciate that. I always tell people, we have to be the change we want to see, right? That's not my quote. We know that quote, but I live by that. It starts with me. So I'm going to show up so that I can help to activate that change. And then there's that ripple effect like you're talking about because of that. That's what we ultimately want. So yeah.
Absolutely. So by you're saying that you didn't want to give up and you were going to keep going because you were the example for your daughters. And so what you did, no doubt has affected their lives, and it continuously will, especially when they become mothers and they move on. You're affecting a person, and I say a person because it could be man or woman, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
You're open to everybody the same way, and they want to fight because they've got kids and they've got family, not only for themselves but to change that cycle.
Yes.
To just redo the cycle for better. And
most definitely.
I just hope you realize that.
Oh, thank you. Well, if I didn't, I do now.
Yeah, and if that wasn't all that Marjorie does, you even do a story time and wine. Can you explain that?
Yes, so I'm a wine connoisseur. I love wine.
I love that one. I saw that in your bio.
And so again, all back to the story, right? And I am always looking for a way to bring people together. But I created Storytime and Wine around the time that George Floyd was murdered, and I wanted to create a space for people to come and talk about what they were feeling and thinking and seeing at that time. And we just started having discussions about, what was happening in our country. But I wanted to do it over wine. I feel like I've had some of the best conversations over a bottle of wine where we've actually left the room or the table feeling like we're ready to take on and solve world problems. And so I love the idea of that. So I started to just create that space, and we've been going strong for over a year now. We've had so many different conversations and touching on, social issues. And we have a wine that we promote that part of the proceeds go to either my organization or some other type of charity every month. And so I love doing that work. And we've taken it on. It's a part of the podcast now with RMK Productions. And so anything with wine.
Hey, I'm a believer. Maybe we should have recorded this like after 5 o'clock. We could have done it over wine.
Most definitely. But yeah, I've done that. And then, and the other biggest thing for me too was because of the verbal and mental abuse, Shannon, I really didn't feel like I was smart. I was starting to believe some of the things my husband was telling me. So at the age of 42, I enrolled in college for the first time,
Yes,
right?
that's when I went back after my divorce in
Really?
my 40s. Best thing ever.
Yes, good for you. I listen, and I'm so glad that I did. I was afraid. I was truly afraid that I was not. I don't know if you had this fear of, you're not going to be able to do it, you're not going to succeed, but I did it, right? I got my bachelor's, and then I just recently in May completed my master's. And so I basically like
Fantastic.
pushed beyond, and now I feel like, you could do your PhD if you wanted to, but
I think
I
it's
am done.
incredible. My biggest fear was math was my nemesis.
Me
Like, was
too.
horrible in high school. So I knew going back, and I had to go back to actually go to college because a little bit of college that I did, the credits didn't even follow me. So I had to start from scratch. And
Yes.
and when you're just not, I was not working. I was a stay-home mom. All that math was just what kind
Yes.
of math? I'll never be able to make it through. And so I did all my math first. I wanted to
Yes.
conquer my nemesis. Like I had to get it out of the way. And once I got through with that, I knew nothing was going to stop me.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that
I
was
was
it
the
for me
oldest
too.
woman in the class, no doubt, but I didn't care. I
That's
didn't
how I
care.
felt too. I was like, but it was, I'm so glad that I did it at that age. I don't know. It's you learn differently, as an adult.
I,
So,
First of all, I enjoyed it.
yes, good.
As
Yeah.
hard as it was, because I worked full time during the day and then I went to classes at night.
Yeah.
And I did some fusion classes where you could take them online as well. But I just was so ready to
Yeah.
just finally go to college, get my degree, practice what I preach. I always tell my kids, you can do it. I always tell my friends, what
Yes.
are you waiting for? And then here I am, not doing it. So finally I just said, you know what? I'm doing it. And after I got it out of my head, I got math done. There was nothing that was going to stop me. So
Good for you.
it was more of a goal rather than something you're supposed to do when you're younger. So I think that's why I
Yes.
did it, and I did it as
Yes.
well as I could.
Yes, that's exactly it. You're doing it for yourself, no one else. Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a great feeling. So yeah,
yeah. So
you can
congratulations
accomplish
to you.
so much.
I know that's not easy.
No, no, it's not. But there's a lot of things that are not easy. But listen, if it's worth having, you're going to work for it. So
Do it, yeah. Don't ever stop, and don't let anybody ever tell you you can't. Don't ever let anybody
right,
say, "Who the hell do you think you are?" Say, "No, who the hell do you think you are?"
I'll tell you.
I'll tell you, and then I'm going to show you. So I know you say in the beginning, you were like, wow, I can't believe it's been 10 years. I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely remarkable what you've done in such 10 short years, because 10 years to accomplish what you've accomplished and been very successful at it is remarkable in and of itself.
Yes, yeah. You know what, now that you say that, thank you. You're really making me self-reflect here. You're right. There's a
It's
lot that happened in the 10 years, and I think, all of this happened when I turned 40. So turning 50 was like a pivotal thing for me. And it's like, okay, now this is like another new chapter. You continue adding to that canvas. I tell people, listen, I am not just one way of doing things. I don't believe that we're here to just do one thing. I believe as women, we can be multifaceted. And I believe that our experiences, good, bad, whatever, they shape us to be able to bring all of these different things to the world. It doesn't have to be just one thing. Don't
no.
let people think, oh, you're doing too much. You're doing this. Listen, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm doing what
Here's
makes
what
me
you
happy.
do.
Yeah, I'm living my life.
Yeah, if I thought it was too much, I'd stop. But if I'm not stopping,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
I
So,
love that. I truly do. And if it makes you happy, do it.
yes,
That's
yes,
just it. You've lived a portion of your life where you weren't happy, and I'm sure you're very thankful that that's behind you. So now you're just like, no, I'm only doing what makes me happy.
that's that's right. That's bringing joy to my life because tomorrow is not promised to any of us. And it doesn't mean that we're still not going to come up on some obstacles and tragedies and things in life. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to how will you respond to it?
That's the
Just,
one thing you will
yeah.
always have control over is how you respond to a
Hmm.
situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes you just get sucker punched, but it's how
Yeah.
you handle it that defines who you are. The
Yeah.
situations doesn't define you. It's how you
No,
handle it.
it's how you handle
And
it.
and one thing, you had said earlier, you were upper middle class, you had your bills paid, you had a car, things were great, you were a part of your community. And that's, I think, really, really important to go back to slightly here, to just go backwards a little bit, because life happens to all of us. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what you look like, what religion you are. It just doesn't matter. Life just picks you out and it's going to make it happen to you. So there's no shame in, oh my gosh, I've had everything and now I have to go to a food pantry.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not fun, but don't be ashamed. It's
No,
how you
no,
handle that situation that will define your character. Don't be ashamed.
most
Don't be
definitely.
afraid to tell your story. You're not the only one.
Yes. And you're not defined by that either. It doesn't define you. And I think that's what
No.
happens with a lot of people. We let these certain situations shape and define us, and they really shouldn't because many of us live up until our 50s, Shannon, and we still don't know who we really are. We have been living based on roles, based on societal roles, based on what our parents, our families, what their expectations of us. That's really how we're moving around in life. And then we realize we're not happy, we're stuck in jobs we don't want to be in, we've done things we didn't want to do. And it's like, and then you're like 50, 60, and you're like, your life feels like, what have I done? You
Yeah.
know? And we just let other things shape us and define us. And we can't do that anymore. We've got to find ourselves and
Don't
we've
be
got to
afraid to
be
look.
ourselves.
Don't be
Yes, and
afraid to
show
look
up.
inside.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to do that inner work. That inner work, and not just when you are going through a hard time, but do that inner work now. Develop that now because, our society, our country, we need people to be whole. We need people to be thinkers. We need people to be well.
Yes.
That's what we need.
Well, we need more people like Marjorie Phoenix.
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon. You're
And,
so
and
sweet. I appreciate
I
that.
do, and I love how you use your name. When we were in our intro call, and you're Marjorie Phoenix, and you were like, I had that Phoenix moment. That's just,
Yes.
I love that.
I renamed myself. Again, I'm not letting society shape me or identify. This is who I am. I am a phoenix, and I feel like many of us out there are phoenixes. We've all had to risen from the ashes in our lives. And so, yeah, we all have a phoenix moment.
Well, I don't know what better message there is than that. So I know for a fact that all, if not something you said, has resonated with somebody, has lifted them, has given them even that moment to just think, wait a second, I can do this. And that sometimes is the only thing someone needs to get out of a bad situation and into a better one. They just need that little spark. So I know
Yes.
you did that today, Marjorie. I can't wait to get this out to so many more people, and let them hear your story, read your book. Like I said, I will link everything up, and the other things, um, just I just can't. I'm so excited. I can't wait to get off the call and then start working on editing so I can get this out first thing tomorrow, because I'm inspired.
Oh, thank you so much, Shannon. I really appreciate that. You
You
gave me
are an
my dose of
incredible woman,
motivation
and I hope
today.
your girls know they've got an incredible mom.
Thank you. Thank you. Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me on and allowing me to share my story with your listeners.
Thank you so much, Marjorie. Hey, everybody, the red subscribe down below. Go ahead and click it. Thank you so much.